that even when they have stored enough to survive the dry season, they continue to work obsessively, constantly searching for more roots, gnawing them off, and hauling them back to their burrows. Research shows that a single sand rat only needs 2 kilograms of grass roots to survive the entire dry season. However, they gather 10 kilograms. The excess eventually rots, and the rats then have to painstakingly clean the decomposed roots out of their burrows. An experiment was conducted where sand rats were kept in cages and provided with ample food every day. Yet, these rats quickly became anxious and died because they could not gather grass roots and accumulate enough to feel secure. From a human perspective, we see that these sand rats are foolish. 4/5 of their efforts are not only unnecessary but harmful. By gnawing off the grass roots in the desert, they make the desert even more barren, reducing their chances of survival. In trying to ensure their safety, they destroy their future. This is digging their own graves. If the sand rats are foolish, what about us humans? Over the years, I've interacted mostly with businessmen. Several of them are already millionaires, with enough wealth to support their families for the rest of their lives. Yet they never seem satisfied. They continue to work tirelessly, day after day, year after year. Watching their endless toil, I often think to myself, why bother? One example is a 36-year-old vice director of a provincial finance department. Dissatisfied with what he had, he took bribe after bribe. Eventually, his crimes were exposed, and he ended up in prison. At the peak of his career and life, he sacrificed everything for something unnecessary. Why bother? On some websites and forums, I've seen people tirelessly comment on every topic under the sun, from science to religion, from politics to news. They are so busy writing, consumed by their pursuits, that they seem lost in their obsession. Why bother? Sand rats feel secure only when they have stored more grass roots than they actually need. Without this, they become anxious to the point of death. Even when well-fed and with no real survival threats, they still worry if they haven't accumulated enough. Excessive accumulation depletes resources and drains life. As the global population continues to grow while resources dwindle, the desire to accumulate extra grass roots intensifies, creating a vicious cycle. Even if humanity achieves sustained peace and development, if we don't eliminate the sand rat anxiety, resources will eventually run out. When that happens, what will become of us? I recall a mass purchasing frenzy in the early 1980s. People feared that if they didn't buy something immediately, they wouldn't be able to get it later or that prices would skyrocket. This too was a form of sand rat mentality. Will it happen again? It's easy to know the way, hard to walk the way, and even harder to uphold the way. Excess is dangerous to life. Life is finite. If we focus too much on accumulation, we risk losing precious time. Worse, we may miss the opportunity to sublimate our lives. I remember a younger family member who began worrying about her 1-year-old child's future college tuition when she was just 23. She wrote to me, complaining that if she didn't find a way to earn more money soon, she wouldn't be able to pay for her child's education. I responded with a serious tone, saying, "Why are you worrying about something so far off? Live for today. Do you know what will happen tomorrow? What changes might come? Why change for their soul?" Buddha also teaches us to live in the present, to go with the flow, and to follow the natural course of things. Excess is dangerous to life. Don't be like the sand rat. In setting gemstones into the crown. Xiefeng. A few days ago, while organizing the shaded pathway between the swimming pool and the tennis court, my spouse discovered a carp sculpture about the size of a lamb, hidden in the grass. It had been long neglected, weathered by rain, dust, wind, and insects. Once lifelike, the carp now appeared dull, aged, and lifeless. My spouse had 2 gardeners retrieve it, clean it, repaint it, and place it at the entrance of the billiard room against a flower wall. Flanked by 2 pots of silver-edged spider plants and surrounded by asparagus ferns, the carps suddenly seemed to embody the spirit of leaping over the dragon gate, adding a vibrant touch to the courtyard. As I gazed at this new scene, my thoughts wandered, and I was filled with reflections. A simple sculpture, once cleaned up and placed in the right setting, could radiate brilliance again. How many precious things in this world are buried in the grass, their true form and beauty yet to be revealed. Especially in human society, how many talented individuals are lost in the trivialities of daily life, forever missing the chance to display their true potential. How many intellectuals, wise figures, and gifted people have been buried in the vast sea of mundanity, their wisdom and brilliance never given the chance to shine. A gemstone must be set in a crown to sparkle. Similarly, sages must be allowed to shine brightly. A sage is not only the pillar of a nation and the pride of a people but also the dutiful child of their parents. They are both law-abiding citizens and extraordinary talents. They can quietly blend into society, unnoticed, or rise above the mundane, graceful and carefree. They can soar alone in the blue sky or join a flock of cranes. Like twinkling stars in the night sky, they adorn the heavens, bringing life and beauty to the universe. Imagine a sky without stars, the night would be a lifeless void. Likewise, without sages, the world would be dull and unremarkable. Why don't sages shine? There are 2 primary reasons. First, they lack self-awareness, never realizing they are gems among humanity. Second, societal constraints hinder their talents. Like a brilliant pearl hidden in a shadowy corner rather than displayed prominently, without an effective system or discerning eyes to recognize them, even those with extraordinary talent and ambition may find their potential trapped within the fortress of their own thinking. Their fervent aspirations and profound knowledge may be eroded by time and drowned by mundane chatter, leaving them to live in obscurity. To become a sage, one must overcome these 2 obstacles. First, seek the guidance of saints, for saints possess the insight to recognize true talent. Without following a saint, how can one discern whether they are wise or not? If one blindly believes themselves to be the best, they risk becoming like the proverbial frog at the bottom of a well. Second, be friends but not followers. It is crucial to cultivate friendships with people from religious and political circles while avoiding membership in their organizations. Once entangled, doctrines and rules may constrain one's free will and innate nature, rendering them a servant to others, unable to live freely. Additionally, it is vital to step out of one's circles regularly. Remaining caught in a vortex leads to confusion, while stepping out offers clarity to evaluate what truly matters, its nature, value, and worthiness of one's devotion. Time and energy are the diamonds of life. Insetting gemstones into the crown means dedicating one's time and energy to endeavors that best reflect the value of life. But where can one find the place or career that best reflects life's value? I carefully considered various fields, from farms to factories, military camps to mines, government offices to schools, service industries, commercial pursuits, and even matters of the heart. I pondered the work of scientists, professors, thinkers, writers, artists, philosophers, political leaders, and religious figures. Yet, something still felt missing. I also reflected on the lives of hidden hermits residing in the mountains and streams. Their existence is undeniably free, wonderful, and elegant, but there lingers a faint sense of helplessness and coldness. Of course, those exceptional individuals who bring light to humanity deserve respect. But if their own life's journey is too sorrowful and tragic, I hesitate to advocate such a path. So, where can one truly reflect the greatest value of life? The mystery is boundless. How to know whether you are fragrant or foul? Xiefeng. Yesterday, a friend brought over a box of shrimp and 2 fish, saying they were fresh from Mozambique. Within half an hour in the kitchen, a swarm of flies was drawn to the fishy smell. We had no choice but to deal with it, washing, peeling, frying, and cooking. It was only after we had eaten and thoroughly cleaned up that the flies finally began to disperse. My home, whether it's the bedroom, living room, kitchen, or courtyard, has always been praised by friends for its cleanliness and tidiness. Flies are rare in the kitchen, even if one or two occasionally wander in, they take a quick look and leave, rarely settling. So why did so many flies appear all of a sudden? Where did they come from? The more I thought about it, the more it turned my stomach. It was clear that the flies had been attracted by the shrimp and fish. The fishy smell had drawn them in, possibly from about a 10-kilometer radius. Wherever there is a foul odor, flies are sure to follow. By eating shrimp and fish with that fishy smell, I had undoubtedly absorbed some of it. Even though the food was quickly digested, the odor had unquestionably left its mark on my body. People with high blood sugar are more prone to being bitten by fleas, mosquitoes, and other insects. Flowers draw butterflies, while fishy smells lure flies. Whether butterflies are drawn to you or flies swarm around you depends entirely on whether you are fragrant or foul. The Bible forbids the eating of certain animals' meat, calling them unclean. Muslims do not eat pork or the meat of animals that died naturally, for the same reason. Buddhists completely avoid meat and pungent foods like garlic and onions, as well as meat with a strong odor. Taoists, when practicing or performing rituals, must fast and bathe beforehand. These practices are not just rituals, there is deeper wisdom behind them. In the second article of the Revelation chapter, I mentioned my grandmother. She was an illiterate woman, yet she knew countless stories about celestial beings. The most remarkable thing was that she had never eaten meat, not even eggs. She was not a Buddhist, so why did she avoid meat? There was a deeper reason behind it. You are what you eat. In the health preservation chapter, I realized, meat eaters become heavy, dull, vegetable eaters become light, clear, grain eaters become wise, air eaters become spiritual. I would now add two more insights: foul foods make one smell, while eating flowers makes one fragrant. So, do people who eat meat tend to have more brutal personalities? Are vegetarians kinder than meat eaters? I won't delve into this question, but one thing is certain: after eating garlic or onions, our mouths will carry their smell for hours. After eating lamb, our mouths will have a strong odor. After eating fish, our mouths will carry the fishy smell. The conclusion is simple: after eating beef, our mouths will taste of beef. After eating insects, our mouths will have the taste of insects. Whatever we eat, our mouths will carry the taste of that food. The real question is, if we frequently eat animal meat, could we become animals in the next life? What we eat affects our future. The path of cultivation in this world is not something to be taken lightly. I won't discuss this further, the mysteries of this world cannot be fully explained. Let's take this further: if eating physical food impacts our future, what about consuming spiritual food? People who read ghost stories all the time will have ghosts on their minds. Those who spend their lives reading atheistic books will only think about the idea that existence determines consciousness, believing humans are the pinnacle of all life and that we can overcome fate. They do not believe in the greatest creator. People who watch pornographic films or read certain magazines will be filled with those thoughts. Those who are obsessed with money will have wealth on their minds. Those obsessed with power will always be thinking about ladders of status. Those obsessed with fame will constantly think about how to gain fame or be associated with famous people. Where eagles gather, there are bound to be animal carcasses. Where flies gather, there are certainly foul-smelling foods. Where businessmen gather, there is certainly wealth. Where the public gathers, there is certainly entertainment. Where criminals gather, there are certainly plots for crime. Where wise people gather, there are certainly saints. And where saints gather, there are certainly divine spirits and the greatest creator. Observe what surrounds you, and you'll see whether you're fragrant or foul. Fragrance draws butterflies to flowers, and peace lets thoughts flow. A clean body wards off illness, while a pure heart invites celestial beings. Whether you believe it or not, that's entirely up to you. Beware. One tendency hides another. Xiefeng. Since yin and yang first emerged, all things and phenomena in the universe have contained these two attributes, forming a duality that ensures balance, with each half complementing the other and embodying the symmetry of opposites. Life and death, for instance, are the two sides of existence. Life contains death, and death contains life. They are opposites yet interdependent. Without one, the other cannot exist. The nature of life in the Pure Land is a separate discussion. The concept of symmetry and the unity of opposites is a valuable tool for understanding phenomena and things, and it is a major avenue for humanity's path to wisdom and sainthood. If we only focus on one side of things, or only recognize one aspect, we will inevitably fall into extremism and be misled. A sheet of paper has a front and a back, or a yang side and a yin side. If we only acknowledge the front of the paper and deny the back, then our thinking has a problem. This type of thinking, which sees only one side of things, is a form of one-sided thinking, asymmetrical thinking, and disharmonious thinking. Lifechanyuan begins by introducing the concept of unconventional thinking. The goal is to inspire people to break free from one-sided perspectives. It encourages us to twist one end of our thinking 180 degrees, inverting it, to see what we hadn't seen before, turn absence into presence, good into bad, love into hate, up into down, life into death, success into failure, loss into gain, poverty into wealth, greatness into insignificance, heroes into fools, darkness into light, and so on. It is essential to emphasize that unconventional thinking involves adjusting one's perspective by 180 degrees, not fully reversing or inverting it. If everything is fully inverted, we fall into another extreme. For example, when we look at a piece of paper, we see only the front. If we flip the paper over, we still see only the other side. The key is to see both the front and the back until we can no longer distinguish which is which. This is the subtlety of unconventional thinking. For example, when we can see death within life, and life within death, where life and death are interdependent and coexistent, when we finally realize that life and death themselves do not exist, this is the true understanding of unconventional thinking. Once we reach this level of thinking, we can become a master, a saint. I won't delve into this profound and mysterious holographic thinking theory. For now, let us focus on the yin-yang attributes of things and phenomena to analyze the problems present in human and individual thinking. Everyone goes through a passionate phase. When I was in middle school, I experienced an intense love affair with a classmate. It was a period of intoxicating infatuation. My mindset at that time was undoubtedly, in heaven, let us be a pair of winged birds, on earth, let us be intertwined branches, unwavering even if the seas dry up and the rocks decay. This is one tendency, but this tendency masked another one, the parting, the bittersweetness hidden within sweetness, the decades-long yearning, and the inner sorrow. The Cultural Revolution was a time of national fervor. Those who didn't participate as Red Guards may struggle to understand the passion behind slogans like, breaking the four olds and establishing the four new, or the zeal of, singing revolutionary songs and traveling the world. During that time, people's mindsets were strikingly similar to my own during my youthful infatuation. However, beneath this lively and exuberant tendency lay another, the destruction of old superstitions and traditions without building genuine faith, which led to immense personal and national tragedies later on. Readers of the rise and fall of the Third Reich know that Hitler's impassioned speeches and charisma inspired the SS soldiers to fight heroically and relentlessly. At that time, Nazi soldiers were fervent and full of fighting spirit, completely convinced they were fighting for a great and sacred cause. However, one tendency hid another, they had no awareness that they were serving fascist rule. Certain holy war organizations have members who are brave and fearless, willing to face death without hesitation. Their hearts are often shaken by a sense of sacred power, fighting and sacrificing their lives for this sacred cause. They feel supreme honor, greatness, and pride. When they flew planes into the World Trade Center and leveled it to the ground, what they felt was nothing but extreme joy. However, this sacredness conceals another tendency, beneath the brilliance lies immense evil. Some extreme religious and political organizations consist of individuals with one-sided thinking. They often believe their cause is the most righteous in the world, yet they fail to realize they are walking an extreme path, one that goes against the way. Over the past 6 months, I've been writing articles while reading widely from domestic and international Chinese websites written by somewhat well-known authors. To this day, I have yet to find a single excellent article. They all veer toward extremes, exhibit one-sided thinking, and are written by those who are self-satisfied. This is a tragedy for the Chinese people. Zhuge Liang, deeply aware of his inability to turn the tide, wrote the Ma Qian prophecies. Similarly, Lifechanyuan may also be unable to change the course of events. After 10 months of online promotion, only a handful of individuals have grasped its essence. Most remain oblivious to the hidden tendency beneath another. They are unaware of the cliff's edge, even as disaster looms. Materialism and idealism, atheism and theism, are two sides of the same coin, or yin and yang. To assert that the world is purely material, ignoring the existence and role of spirit, mind, and consciousness, will inevitably lead humanity astray. Conversely, to claim the world is purely ideal or consciousness-based, disregarding the value and role of material existence, will likewise mislead humanity. Pure materialism exaggerates human agency and subjective initiative, leading to arrogance, conceit, pride, and irrationality. Pure theism suppresses and stifles human nature, innate freedom, and initiative, potentially bringing spiritual and psychological terror. Enough for now, it's late. Tomorrow is the last day before Christmas 2004, the busiest day of the year for business. I'll leave some energy for work tomorrow and make a bit more money. In conclusion, if one becomes intoxicated by one tendency, one will inevitably suffer under the opposite tendency later on. By the way, could gods and Buddhas have another side? Could the devil, Satan, have another side as well? The path of moderation for the sage. Xiefeng. A large tree that provides shade and shelter is spared from being chopped down by carpenters because it is considered useless. A hen, on the other hand, is spared from slaughter because it is useful and lays eggs. Hence, Confucius advised his disciples to position themselves between being talented and untalented. How does one find balance between talent and lack of talent? Is there a deeper wisdom hidden in this idea? When I went abroad as a translator, my superiors considered potential factors beyond just my language skills. I was proficient in accounting, clerical work, and statistics. As a level 5 fitter, a role often referred to as the jack of all trades, in mechanical fields, I was well versed in mechanical schematics and construction. If needed, I could install and repair lathes, gasoline engines, diesel engines, and drilling rigs. Moreover, I had basic knowledge of foreign trade correspondence, credit procedures, import-export processes, and customs clearance. By these standards, I was considered talented and deemed an ideal candidate for the overseas assignment. Before I left, I casually remarked to a colleague that the company could use me in multiple roles due to my varied skills. Unexpectedly, my colleague responded, "Why bother knowing so much? Once you're abroad, just stick to translating and feign ignorance in everything else. Otherwise, you'll overwork yourself and invite resentment from others." I was taken aback but soon understood. The ancients warned that, in troubled times, excessive talent is a root of misfortune, and that, mastering 1,000 techniques is less valuable than excelling in one. A person should neither be overly talented nor completely untalented but should adapt to circumstances. The balance between talent and lack thereof extends to the philosophy of moderation. The concept of moderation has faced criticism for being indecisive, opportunistic, and overly accommodating. Critics argue, 1 is 1, and 2 is 2. What is this ambiguous 1.5? Love is love, and hate is hate. What is this undefined middle ground? For a long time, I scoffed at the idea of moderation, viewing it as unworthy of a true man. However, as I gained life experience, especially through the ups and downs of human relationships, I came to realize that moderation embodies the qualities of a sage and reflects the Tao. Without broad knowledge, one cannot grasp its essence. When dealing with the poor and the rich, leaders and subordinates, intellectuals and laborers, religions and political parties, men and women, governments and underground groups, Chinese and foreigners, the elderly and the young, conservatives and innovators, suppression and resistance, violence and cooperation, I find myself standing in the middle ground, avoiding favoritism. The sun shines equally on the good and the wicked, and flowing water nourishes both the earth and humanity without discrimination. If I am to follow the Tao, I must let things take their natural course. I grew up in poverty. During my 3 years at the Zhangjiago Geological Technical School in Hebei Province, the school cafeteria cook once remarked, "You've had the worst meals among the thousands of students here over the past 3 years." While studying at the University of International Business and Economics in Beijing, my classmates suggested pooling 12 yuan each for a shared meal, but I declined because I couldn't afford it. I've always finished every grain of rice in my bowl, a habit rooted not only in the understanding that each grain is hard-earned, but also in my personal experience of near starvation in 1958 and 1960. Whether it's green onions dipped in soybean paste from the northeast, sour noodles from the northwest, sweet foods from the south, or spicy Sichuan cuisine, whether it's Chinese or Western dishes, I savor every meal as if it were a delicacy. Friends often remark, "Watching you eat makes the food look delicious." Because of my humble beginnings, I once believed that all poor people were inherently righteous, and all rich people were unjust. However, after climbing into the middle class and hiring nearly 100 workers poorer than me, I was disheartened by their laziness, irresponsibility, theft, lies, and ungratefulness. It became evident that some people are destined to remain poor. I once hired a lawyer to fight a year-long lawsuit against the National Trade Union, representing the poor. In the end, my eloquent speech made a difference, and I won the case. Before the law, the poor were left speechless and without a leg to stand on. Does this mean I now side with the rich? Not at all. The arrogance of the wealthy, their cutting remarks, and their ostentatious displays often leave the less fortunate feeling humiliated. I sometimes think, aside from your money, what else do you have? I've always been under others' leadership and detested the domineering and condescending manner of those in power, convinced that no official was truly good. However, when I later had the chance to lead others myself, I came to realize that being in a leadership position is no easy task either. The masses have their reasons, and those in leadership have their challenges. An irreconcilable dilemma exists between the two. I was once a member of the working class and deeply envied intellectuals. I thought they understood many principles, could distinguish truth from falsehood, and upheld justice, serving as the backbone of enterprises and the nation. Later, after graduating from the Education Institute and becoming a middle school teacher, I became an intellectual myself. However, I quickly discovered that intellectuals can be narrow-minded, self-serving, and overly concerned with trivial matters. On the surface, they may appear courteous and witty, but deep down, they are often masters of internal conflict. Currently, I have written nearly 1 million words in articles and can now be considered a genuine intellectual. My 10 months of experience online have profoundly revealed to me that intellectuals are not necessarily admirable. Famous intellectuals often disregard those without status, speaking in grandiose and polished rhetoric while their true intentions and actions often tell a different story. As for the majority of ordinary intellectuals, deep down, their attitude seems to be, "I know you're capable, but I'll do everything I can to prevent your success." Jealousy may well be the innate nature of intellectuals. They envy not only the talents of their colleagues, classmates, and friends but also those of people everywhere, whether in the present or throughout history. Intellectuals tend to be more adept at hindering progress than fostering it. If they do offer praise or admiration for someone, it is usually because they stand to gain something from it, or the person being praised is a historical figure, deceased, or a foreigner. Otherwise, such praise rarely comes from a place of genuine sincerity. I was once a devout communist, idolizing Marx and Lenin and firmly believing that religion is the opium of the people. However, after studying the Bible, the Quran, Buddhist scriptures, and the Tao Te Ching, I came to realize how shallow and uninformed Marx and Lenin truly were. Later, I participated in religious activities and experienced various practices and rituals. Coupled with observing the fanaticism and zealotry of certain religious organizations and individuals, I came to understand that religion not only anesthetizes people's spirits but also constrains their souls and instills a sense of they are neither strong nor brave but instead gentle, even competing with women for the role of gentleness. This inevitably causes distress for women. When faced with such men, women have no choice but to become strong and assertive, embracing a form of female chauvinism. I am also a statist, firmly believing that everyone must operate within the framework of the Constitution and laws. Only in this way can society maintain order and harmony, enabling people to fully utilize their talents and resources. If societal problems arise, the first course of action should be to amend the Constitution and laws. Once established, these laws must be strictly adhered to by everyone, from top to bottom. No one should act outside the boundaries of the Constitution and laws, and any violation should be treated as a crime. The problem is that sometimes, in certain places, some people go beyond the bounds of the law. They bully others without facing legal restraint or punishment. What should I do then? I can't always endure such situations. I must take action. I firmly believe that being pitied or sympathized with is a disgrace for a man. When left with no other choice, I would have to go rogue. When cries for help go unanswered, I have no choice but to join or form a criminal group. Regardless of the consequences, I will fight back. If you won't let me live, why should I let you live comfortably? Somebody once said something absurd: those who are not of our kind must have different hearts. After interacting with black and white people for over 10 years, I came to realize that all human hearts are made of flesh. Many black and white people have been exceptionally friendly to me, more sincere and easier to get along with than some of my own compatriots. There is no place in the world without fragrant grass. Wherever there is human warmth, one can find a home. A true man's ambitions should reach all corners of the world. Chinese, foreigners, black, white, yellow, aren't we all human beings? The issue between the elderly and the young boils down to one unchanging principle: the young must respect the elderly, and the elderly must care for the young. Beyond this, judgments cannot be based on age alone. The young should not read Water Margin, and the old should not read Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which proves that both young and old have their own strengths and weaknesses. Determining who is right or wrong must be done on a case-by-case basis. In summary, nothing is conclusive, and human affairs are never set in stone. Our minds must remain in a state of emptiness, ignorance, humility, and moderation, ready to act according to circumstances and adapt to the flow of life. When the weather is fair, the people harmonious, and all is well, the saint should remain dormant, silent for 1,000 years, letting everything take its natural course. But when chaos abounds and lives are plunged into suffering, the saint must act swiftly and decisively, guiding the world back to order. To become a sage, one must practice moderation. Any bias will turn one into a scoundrel. The Saint. Xiefeng. Zhuangzi said, "Take heaven as the foundation, virtue as the root, the way as the door, and the signs of change as the teachings. This is the saint." In the intermediate treasury of classical advice in Lifechanyuan, Part 1, the concept of the saint is described as follows. When the world aligns with the Tao, the saint fulfills their mission. When the world is in disorder, the saint perseveres and emerges. The saint practices non-action and teaches with wise words, wishes without striving. The saint does not seek greatness, yet achieves greatness. The saint desires what others do not desire, places no value on rare treasures, learns what others do not learn, corrects the mistakes of the masses, and supports the natural order of all things without imposing force. The saint avoids excess, extravagance, and arrogance. The saint embraces unity as a model for the world. The saint knows themselves without seeking attention, loves themselves without seeking admiration. The saint does not hoard, the more they give to others, the more they have. The saint's way is to act without contention, to use without greed. The saint is nameless, the divine person claims no credit, and the perfected person transcends the self. The saint's way requires minimal effort yet achieves significant results. The saint is not omnipotent, no thing has a perfect purpose, and neither heaven nor earth achieves complete perfection. The saint has no divided heart, and heaven follows a single way. The saint does not focus on life or death but seeks to understand their underlying reasons. The saint relies on the way for transformation, not on intelligence or cunning. Destiny is self-created, and the saint understands its principles. The saint is like a spiritual herb bestowed by heaven upon the earth, a miraculous elixir capable of curing all ailments. The saint absorbs the essence of the sun and moon, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and transforms into a celestial being or divine figure. The saint embodies the spirit of the greatest creator, serving as the creator's representative and messenger on earth and as the pinnacle of humanity. The wisdom of the saint is profound and unfathomable. Jesus, Sakyamuni, and Laozi are the saints among sages. Great philosophers, scientists, thinkers, and politicians also exhibit the qualities of the saint. The wisdom of the saint does not primarily stem from knowledge or education but from spiritual resonance with the way. The saint possesses keen spiritual awareness. The saint transcends life and death, personal biases, fixed conclusions, hatred, and attachments. They flow, change and adhere to the principles of yin and yang. Zhuge Liang resolutely said, "To save the suffering and the troubled is the work of the saint." In times of turmoil in human society, it is only the saint who can guide humanity out of confusion and hardship. Great saints will inevitably emerge in human society, for only through the emergence of great saints can the worthy not be left behind in the wild, and the world will become one family. May our Lifechanyuan Academy members first become noble people, then sages, and ultimately saints. Let us categorization. Celestials can be further classified into ghost celestials, human celestials, land celestials, deity celestials, and super celestials. In Revelation chapter, Article 68, saints are discussed, and they belong to the celestial category. Based on the depth of their alignment with the Tao, celestials can be subdivided into perfected beings, true beings, celestial beings, divine beings, and heavenly beings. If categorized by levels, humanity can be divided into 3 tiers. Lower level, ignorant people, worldly people, and mortals; middle level, sages; upper level, saints, including ultimate beings, true beings, celestial beings, divine beings, and heavenly beings. Among these, celestials, deity celestials and super celestials no longer belong to the human realm, while ghost celestials are also outside humanity, can be categorized into diamonds, rubies, sapphires, cat's eyes, topazes, spinels, aquamarines, zircons, emeralds, tourmalines, garnets, jadites, opals, moonstones, sunstones, turquoise, malachites, agates, pebbles, bluestones, flint, and so on. Each type of stone has its own unique characteristics. Similarly, people can be categorized into heavenly beings, divine beings, celestials, true beings, perfected beings, saints, mortals, worldly people, and ignorant people, based on their unique traits. A sage is someone who has transcended the constraints of instinct, desire, and emotion to fall short of a life of spirituality. Sages remain unclear about whether existence precedes consciousness or vice versa. They readily accept scientific knowledge, logical reasoning, empirically proven facts, and the wisdom distilled from humanity's millennia of experience. However, when it comes to transcending conventional thinking, sages are. Recently, a friend visited my home to swim but almost drowned. He could only swim 5 meters, and beyond that, he started floundering in place. Fortunately, someone was there to rescue him, otherwise, the consequences could have been dire. The development of Lifechanyuan vividly illustrates this phenomenon. Many people are initially enthusiastic and actively participate, but as the path deepens, they find it difficult to keep up. They start to feel that certain aspects are unsuitable or problematic, attempting to explain things or draw boundaries based on their rational thinking as sages. They try to impose limits on the boundless mysteries of the universe using simple formulas or laws, which is both distressing and regrettable. Everything has limits. Pots, pans, trucks, and computers have their capacities, even springs have an elastic limit. The Earth's mass and speed must remain within limits to maintain balance and order. The problem is, human thought is limitless. Left to themselves, people may never break free from rigid thinking. But with guidance, they can transcend conventional thinking and enter a vast new dimension. Unfortunately, few people are humble enough to accept such guidance, while many remain stubbornly attached